everyone, I am Mike Zupan with Byte-Size Impressions.com. Byte-Size Impressions, well, you can see it right down there. Just take it and throw it all in one word.com. Basically, I am here tonight with Garrett Golden, writer for Byte-Size Impressions. Garrett, give a shout out.
How's it going, everybody?
And we are here this evening with the first Byte-Size Impressions podcast, and this isn't going to be something that I can foresee being a regular thing, as in same night every week, same time every week, same bat time, same bat channel. So this is something that's really, I think, only going to pop up every once in a while when we have a wealth of information to talk about, a specific thing that the industry sort of points out to us that we say this needs to be discussed because of what's happening in the industry. So, you know, hopefully that's something that we can fulfill. But this evening, it's going to be a very broad topic. We have no aim. I'm not here with any itinerary. I'm not here to BS anyone. But basically, if you're brand new to Byte-Size Impressions, if you haven't been to the website before, or maybe you've only been following me via Twitch or on Twitter or whatever, basically, it's mostly about opinion pieces. The most recent one on the website right now is regarding the massive amount of releases we've seen in the latter half of 2014 that's had issues, and that article is called Remember the 11th of November. And I guess that's kind of where I want to start off discussing things with Garrett this evening, because it really feels like right now that this, to me, this generation of video gaming is probably the most disappointing one for me to date. Garrett, how do you feel about this generation so far? Not just about the games, but in regards to quality control, how things have been released, and that sort of thing.
I really think that I think the publishers, developers, and things have gotten a little too comfortable with the fact that games can be patched and they can be worked on after they've gone gold. Because we've been seeing, as you've said, this November the 11th, the day to remember, is just games that need multiple patches within the first week because they just got sent out to hit the release date and they don't work like they should. And I don't know. I have two different opinions with two of the main games, one being Master Chief Collection and the other being Unity, of course. Master Chief Collection has gone through just a slew of matchmaking issues where people, you know, it's Halo. People want to play competitive old Halo. That's why people are buying this collection. And it's not working. It's not working. And on the one hand, that's a server issue with getting that worked out with so many people, and I can kind of get it, but guys, you gotta get that sorted out. If the beta needs to be bigger, if I don't know, but that kind of stuff can't happen with a game that big. And then
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, and then I can't give that kind of concession to Unity though, because that just should have never happened. That's single player. That's all the game is. Master Chief Collection at least has a solo campaign for 4 games. Unity is just blimping, and it'll be okay. You know, they'll patch it, but it's not okay right now, and it wasn't okay when it needed to be okay when it launched.
That is a very interesting thing that you say. It's going to be okay, and the games obviously are going to be okay. And we'll start talking about Unity real quick here, since you've been playing that game.
I'm actually in a unique position. I love the Assassin's Creed series. I know it's huge and everything, but I am a really big fan of it. And I ended up passing on Black Flag. Played a whole bunch of Assassin's Creed prior to the new generation starting, and that was a launch game, of course. And with the console bundles coming out, and the codes bundled in with the Xbox One, which is the platform I'm playing on, I got both games for $40. I think $20 per code when they're still being sold digitally on the Microsoft Store for $60. Still from the launch game last year. So I got them for $40. So I'm actually in the last week or so I've been finishing up Black Flag, and I have Unity. And I originally, you know, was a little questioning whether or not I should go one way or the other, play Black Flag and then Unity, or just jump into it. But they made it easy for me with the launch issues. So.
Yeah, for me, Black Flag was definitely it's up there as probably my favorite in the series so far. I know that opinion is not so popular. I know a lot of people herald the second game in the franchise, but I have not played that game yet. I own it. It's over there on my shelf along with Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed 3 and the other one, I don't know,
Revelations.
Revelations or whatever it's called. But yeah, Ubisoft really did something that kind of annoyed me with Assassin's Creed Unity, and it's probably also partly because of Halo not working, because that's the game I was most excited for on November 11th. We'll talk about Halo more in a little bit. But focusing on this title, it was pretty much my saving grace after I realized that matchmaking on Halo wouldn't work. So I pop it in, I install it, and hi microtransactions, hello frame stutter, hello character texture pop in, hello shadow pop in, hello falling through the floor in certain geometric areas of the map or level design or whatever. It's not broken except for the two times that it froze my PS4. It's still extremely playable, but the whole thing for me is that we are in next generation now. And when it comes to next generation, one of the things that I don't expect to see anymore are these sort of flubs and hiccups and these sort of things. We should have been able to move past them by now.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, that's what upsets me the most about Unity, especially considering the fact that they've spent 4 years with 10 teams working on this game.
Right. I mean, it's huge. They built it from the ground up. They said all new mechanics, all new everything, because they changed how the parkour works and all that. And that's great. It's wonderful, but it needs to work. None of that really matters if it doesn't work. There was uh, one of the developers of the game, or supposedly wrote into a podcast and said that they barely had it running at 10 frames like 6 months ago, and they just got it up to speed in time to launch. And I mean, that's great that they did that much work on it, but that just shows that they were riding the line there, and it upsets me a little bit that they didn't just delay the game a little bit if those were issues they were running into and it was that close with frame rate issues like that.
The interesting thing about a delay is that they actually did a minor delay for the game once. Originally, this title was due to come out in October, and then they decided to delay it for a few weeks or whatever. And the story that I kind of get just by seeing everything that's been seen online via interviews or comments that have been made to the press or whatever, it seems like when they started building this game, I kind of get the impression that they thought that next-gen consoles, now current-gen, were going to be something more than what they actually currently are, which is pretty average PCs if you
Right.
want to really kind of... That might even be a little too gracious, too. But, they're not quite the leap that they were over last generation. The thing that they really wanted to drive home with this game, though, is just how much you can see on screen at once. And I think they really started with a ridiculous number of NPCs that you could see on screen at once. I think they aimed like wicked high. And then they eventually sort of said, whoa, we have to start scaling back. And I know at one point in interviews they were talking about 5,000 NPCs on screen at once, which still sounds ridiculous. And I just think that in the year leading up to release, or the last half year, they were caught with their pants down. It's an annual franchise. They can't really afford to say, okay, we'll release leaking months later. So I think they were kind of stuck in the ship that they had built and sailed, and they had to get it in a playable state, and they had to do so at sacrificing themselves a little bit. They originally wanted 1080p, 60 frames per second parity, and they did achieve that parity, but it was at 900p and 30 frames per second. but of course that's problematic too. I don't have a problem with 900p. Rise on the Xbox One is one of the best looking games on any next-gen console to date still, and Assassin's Creed Unity could have had it all, I think, if it could maintain a solid 30 frames per second, but it just can't. It is a juddery mess.
And you brought up something interesting with, that they got caught with their pants down with the specs of the consoles. And okay, fine. You got caught hoping that there was something better than it was, and it wasn't. Don't take that out on the consumer. Just realize that our plan's not going to work because we made a mistake thinking this was going to be more, and let's push it further out. They already had Rogue coming out. They decided to do this crazy thing, 2 games this year, one for last gen, one for this gen, and there was plenty of time when they got the specs and they knew how far behind they were. I mean, honestly, if they were at 10 frames a second 6 months ago, they had to know they were behind. They had to have talked about it, and like I was saying before, I feel like they're far too comfortable just saying, we'll get it out in a playable state and we'll polish it after people have already bought it, and that's not right.
Right, and that's what I feel is happening so much now. I mean, this sort of thing, really began last generation with the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. And I'm not saying there were never any games before that weren't buggy. It's just that now, because we have the power of the internet at our disposal, and they can just tap in and update these games whenever they want. Unfortunately, they're kind of taking more and more advantage of that. Now, before we continue, I want to say to a guest that just joined us, Gabriel Galliani from Italia.
Hey there, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, man.
I can hear you just fine, Gabe. I don't see a face, though. Are you just here on audio?
Yeah, I just saw you tonight. I'm smashed, man.
Yeah. Yeah, we're recording here, and for me it's like 8:30 Eastern time in the United States. So of course that means it's what time is it for you? 2:30 in the morning for Gabe. So I appreciate you joining us. We're talking about the shitstorm that is Assassin's Creed Unity a bit, and I was just saying that Garrett just touched upon something very interesting with this, saying that. They had to have known that it wasn't really up to snuff, and I agreed with him, and I think that they're taking advantage of this so much right now in the industry. And the thing that really gets on my nerves, though, it's Garrett touched on the fact that they've been working on Assassin's Creed Rogue to and be releasing this at the same time as Unity, and that is very ambitious. But that aside, we have to keep in mind that, again, for this game in particular, 10 teams, 4 years, and it's not just the game though. As Garrett mentioned already, there is some multiplayer, but I doubt it's anything as intensive as the match that's been going on with Halo, of course, which is far more intensive. Not that that's an excuse for the Master Chief Collection, but they had to focus primarily on single player, and they couldn't get it right. Yet they still had to use some of their time and resources in order to develop the mobile app, which is another frustration of mine, and we will also discuss a little bit. And it is also, they've got a lot of nerve after this release to still be asking for microtransactions in, was it 99 for the top tier microtransaction package you can purchase in game. As well as selling a season pass for a game that's still not working the way that it should. Gabe, what's your opinions on the Assassin's Creed nonsense?
I should be careful.
Honest, be open.
Okay, it should be open. I think you've been kind of an idiot about buying it. I'm sorry, Mike.
Yep.
It's not a day one purchase.
It's fair.
Like, when will it be considered fixed? Because I don't even know if it's possible to fix that game. And I'm talking about, I don't know, maybe you guys already discussed this. I'm talking about the pop-ups, the pop-ins, and whatnot.
It's very. I mentioned it very briefly. Garrett has not played the game just yet. He has been catching up playing Black Flag, and he's going to be playing that sometime shortly. But basically, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, it might be a tad more understandable because basically, when you're playing Unity, for anybody who hasn't played this game yet, there is a really long loading time when you first get into Paris, or any time that you decide to fast travel from one part of the map to the next. And that's because I think the game is probably loading like all of Paris except for the population that's being controlled right in your immediate area and where you're going to see when you climb up. And it doesn't matter if you're up high in the sky and you're synchronizing, getting the whole bird's eye view thing going on, or if you're on the ground level with everyone else, just kind of going through the crowd. There is insane pop-in with clothing, with character models completely just popping in out of like 30 yards away. There was another weird thing that I noticed when I was on top of a building looking down on a crowd. This game allegedly has 25 gigabytes of lighting data. Well, it certainly doesn't have near that much as far as the shadows to project, because what was happening was I was kind of panning the camera, and as I was panning the camera, everybody in the crowd below me had shadows, like, directly in front of me. But anybody that was like, I'm not getting aligned here with my camera, but anybody over here, there was no shadows. Just, directly as I was panning. And, like, you could see on the left and the right, the shadows just disappearing, just so it could just, placate to whoever's in the middle of my screen. Yeah, not good.
But that game makes for pretty good YouTube videos, though.
Not a day one purchase. Not if you're buying it at full retail, but like I was telling Mike earlier, I got the game for $20 because of the bundles, and because of the Xbox One bundles where you get the game, because of the NVIDIA, I think it's the GeForce graphics cards where you can pick Assassin. Yeah, so many people are getting that game bundled into something else that they're screwing over the people who bought their game and the people who decided to try their game when they bought something else. Like, it's so many people that didn't get that as the primary focus of their day one purchase are also experiencing all this bullshit.
But see, for $20, I mean, it's okay. Don't get me wrong. I think the game, when it's still, it looks beautiful. That's my sincere.
That it does.
But I'm so much of a gameplay person, and right now I'm playing, and I mean right now as we speak, I'm playing Dragon Age, and I'm loving it. Granted, it's 30 frames per second and whatnot. I got it on console instead of on the PC because deals and whatnot. I'm loving it because everything works. I had one bug that was fixed by entering the pause screen and exiting. Like that's the whole thing that I had to complain about this game.
That's impressive when pretty much every other game has even single player games, big day one patches to make them work right.
Well, by the way, I'm like 6 or 7 hours in, so there's still time for the big fuck up to happen. But as of now,
apparently you still have like 100 hours for something to fuck up. So.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing about that game, is that the reason why I think Dragon Age Inquisition has not received any real negative feedback from people on the internet as far as quality control is concerned is because after sort of rushing Dragon Age 2 out in order to placate the publisher, the publisher pretty much decided to let this development team have the time that they needed in order to make Dragon Age Inquisition, and the results seemingly speak for themselves. A lot of people are enjoying this game a lot more than the second game. I haven't been hearing anything about any major, game crashing bugs or, performance issues or anything like that. And it seems, based on reviews and comments that I'm seeing on the internet, unless a bunch of people are just parroting the same sentiment over and over again, campaign's 80, 90 hours long. I mean, that is impressive stuff. I cannot wait to play that game.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Just so
to me,
much
it's not a 9 or a 9.5 like many people gave it. I think it's more in line with an 8. But you know, I'm tough to please, so yeah, 8 is pretty good.
Yeah, and Gabe's conviction is definitely far greater than mine. If he sees anything, if he smells anything funny from like 10 miles away, he's not going to go near it. But me, I am sort of a sucker. I'm not the best consumer, I should say, because I don't buy into DLC and microtransactions and all that other bullshit unless it's something that's really cool. But I did buy Assassin's Creed because Gabe wanted to call me out for it. I have to explain myself now. I did buy it. I went out and I bought it the morning that it came out because I played Black Flag last year. I had a pretty great experience with it. I didn't have experience anything that kind of took me out of the moment in the game and ruined that that effect of immersion. So I wasn't expecting to be screwed so royally with the performance on this one. But you know what? It happens. You live and you learn. Next year might be a different story.
I'm gonna put the sword in your hands. You know what? When I bought The Witcher 3, I bought it in May.
You mean that game that's not out yet? Yes, I remember that.
I bought it in May, okay? It's coming out in February, so...
Yeah, I was about to say, Gabe's tough, but he already gave The Witcher 3 a 10 out of 10, so...
Well, so there's time for you to get the proverbial cock up your ass, basically, with that game, but I highly doubt it coming from CD Projekt Red. Another thing that they seem to be doing right is not too long ago, I think like a week and a half ago, or maybe a couple of weeks ago, they said they're going to be releasing a whole bunch of free DLC for that game.
Of course they are. Of course they are, because that's just who they are.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm glad to hear Dragon Age is doing so well. Ubisoft, I need to rag on them just for another second here because that microtransactions thing, I do have to say, as much as I hate the way it's been implemented in the game, the thing that infuriates me even more is the fact that when you are going around Paris, as in any other Assassin's Creed game, at least from what I can tell, there's a bunch of collectibles for you to go around the map and to get around Paris. And some of them are like loot or treasure chests. And there are 3 variations of these chests that you find along the map. You have white ones, and the white ones, you can open them whenever you want. You don't have to have any lock-picking skills or anything like that. Then there are red ones. The red ones, you do have to have lock-picking skills, and there's various degrees of lock-picking skills that you unlock throughout the game. But what really burns my ass is these greenish-blue ones that are on the map, because they're physically in-game, and you find them, and you walk up to them, hit circle to interact. I'm playing on the PS4, and it says, please use the Unity app in order to unlock this content. What? Let's talk about that for a minute.
At what point did Ubisoft become Abstergo? Like,
yeah.
What?
It seems like that's the way things are going. I mean...
Ubisoft becoming more about services. It seems like they want to really play up Uplay. They want their apps to be out there. They really want to get people using the other things. So people are going to complain about it, but some people are going to use it, and they want to see if it's worth it. If it works out and they get a lot of people using their other apps and stuff, you will see it again. If not, we won't. It's, we're the people in these games that Abstergo is experimenting on. They're testing things on us. They're saying, for God's sakes, in Black Flag they introduced where you could actually, do you like this mission? Do you want us to do this again? Okay, thanks. Thanks for telling us that.
Yeah, that did rub me the wrong way in Black Flag. And
I have a question for you guys, because I played Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, and then I tried the Brotherhood and Revelations, but I don't know, it seemed like a downfall for me after 2. I loved Assassin's Creed 2. And then I played a little bit of Black Flags.
The Italian loved Assassin's Creed 2. How surprising.
What?
I said the Italian guy loved Assassin's Creed 2. That's not that surprising.
Yeah. And so I have no idea where the story is up, like right now. And I mean the the modern part.
All you really need to know without spoilers is that.
No, spoil away. Just I don't give a fuck. Like.
Okay, well, spoilers then, I guess. Yeah, Desmond's he died. He's gone. He like saved the world and he died, and then they like scrubbed that kind of clean, and then they rebooted the modern world into the modern world story into Abstergo is using the Animus as a like a testing program. People come in, they are starting to make games with it. They're a game making company that is taking these historical instances and making games out of them. But also,
is it a multi-religious and multicultural development team or not? Because that's important.
They do still say that at the beginning of the games, that it's been developed by all these historical and cultural elitists around the world. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, since I'm not going to like spoiler anything, but there really isn't anything to spoiler in Unity because they really stay away from the modern day stuff. It's practically non-existent. All you really get is the idea that now Abstergo has pretty much fulfilled its dream a little bit. It is now in people's homes, and basically what I think the assassins are doing is they're tapping in, hacking their way into people who are using this entertainment at home to relive history and using them to find out information against the Templars.
Oh, wow.
So you're basically in the game. They don't even really call it the Animus. They refer to it as the Animus at the beginning, but I think the word that they're using now is the Helix.
Okay, guys, best case scenario, this is one just really long con, and Ubisoft is going to reveal that they are Abstergo, and it's going to be this awesome PR stunt, and then they're going to be like, we're kidding, we're giving you like a bunch of free games and your money back. That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
That is funny, but I severely doubt it with the way things have been going on in the video game industry.
I think it's way more likely for it to be a con and for there to be Templars and real assassins fighting in our world. That would be a thing.
Nice. Yeah. So, speaking of more egregious errors in video games, Halo, the Master Chief Collection, that's another big one, and that's one that really ruffled my feathers. As I said to Garrett before you joined, Gabe, that was the one I was really, 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 really excited to play on November 11th, first and foremost, because I don't have an Xbox 360 anymore, and I wanted to relive playing Halo multiplayer. It was and still is amongst the best that's out there on consoles, at least anyway, in my opinion. And this was going to be the whole package in one. And but this whole thing leading up to release has been really problematic, both idealistically and procedurally, and just quality-wise as well, now that the game has been released. The first thing I want to tap into is this whole idea about these huge, huge content updates that they've been releasing for the games this generation. I mean, I remember back in maybe around like June, I was kind of like, no, back in May, I was saying, wow, it's like a 5 to 7 gigabyte update for Wolfenstein just to be able to be what it's supposed to be. And then I know I got an Xbox One in June, and I downloaded a 16 gigabyte update for Dead Rising 3. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, opinions on this trend this last year.
It's interesting. Is the same thing happening with the PS4 with the updates, same way like Wolfenstein and stuff like that? Is that still having these big patches?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of a size difference for Wolfenstein. I think it was like 5 gigabytes maybe for the PS4 and maybe 7 gigabytes for the Xbox One, or 7 and 9. There was a little bit of a difference from what I know.
It seemed to me, and when they revealed the Xbox One, that they were very much just saying to everybody, look, you're going to have a connection, and a good connection, to use this service. That's what it's all about now. And then they turned around on that completely, but they kept saying that was a direction they wanted to go in, and we've seen a lot of things that require connections. A lot of their major games, Titanfall, you cannot play unless you're online. And with these patches, I think that's another thing where they just expect people still to always have a solid, good connection if they're going to use this product, even though that's not kind of required anymore. Whereas I think it's a little less excusable for Sony, who is trying to be very clear on, you don't have to be connected and stuff like that. We're going to stay away from that stuff that they got in trouble for, and it's the same thing. You still have to be connected to download multiple gigs for these game updates, and unfortunately, just not even companies like Ubisoft, who shouldn't release these games and then patch them to fix them, but people who release games and have to patch them for other reasons, updates, just regular content. The content's going to be much bigger, and it's going to hurt for people that have capped connections or slow quality connections, and it's honestly, I keep saying that's an infrastructure issue more than anything. That's not going to change. We should really hope to get better internet. That's what I think is going to happen, because I don't think, with how big all of the content for this stuff is, and how much people have to come over to get these find these bugs and stuff, and they have to be patched after they get released publicly, that we're going to keep seeing these huge installs. We're going to keep seeing these day one patches, these week 2 patches, whatever, and it's not going to stop.
Yeah, well, I didn't play any video games in the last, I think, 3 weeks, except for today and yesterday, because I was busy. And so I fire up the PS4, and I had to download, I'm not kidding you guys, 14 gigabytes of updates for my games. It's like, and I noticed, just because I just turned on the PS4, then I made some coffee, and I came back, and I started up the Dragon Age, and I was watching YouTube videos, and I saw my YouTube videos weren't loading, and I was like, what the fuck? Then I check on the dashboard, and it's downloading gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of shit. I was downloading, like, I think alpha gigabyte for Diablo 3. What are they patching in? I mean, is there even a way to know what they're doing to the games? Because
on the PlayStation 4, there is. If you highlight the icon for the game on your home row, or it probably works from your library, collection that you have on there now. If you hit the options button, there is like a release notes descriptor there, and if you hit that, as long as the developer provided detailed notes, then the changes that they made should be there.
oh, you're right. Bug update history. Just checking right now.
Oh no, I think it only shows the last update and not the ones prior to that. But while he's checking, I will say that one of the things that that bothers me is not exactly so much that the file sizes are large, because I know when I run into people online and I'm talking about this to them, they say, move somewhere with good internet connection. You should not live somewhere that does not have good internet. What is wrong with you? Now, my internet is fine, and I'm still arguing about this because I'm a physical media kind of guy, and I'm also the kind of guy that believes that if I decide I don't want to buy digital, which I kind of don't, because I feel like my good old Blu-ray discs are going to last a lot longer than the servers that are hosting these games and the content updates. If I want to go to the store and I want to pick up a disc that went gold, which used to mean that the game was done and was ready to be pressed and then sent to stores, I should be able to go to the store and buy a complete product. Unfortunately, what's happening is, because, as we've been talking about this entire podcast so far, because the developers are using the internet so much more to be able to finish their games after they have to ship it out, it seems like we're not getting completed games anymore at retail, and I feel like I'm being punished for being a physical copy kind of guy. And Halo is the perfect example of that, because if you pre-ordered Halo digitally via your Xbox One, you could download the game and the 20 gigabyte, which eventually ended up being 15 gigabytes. You could download that update as well prior to release. That way, you could actually start playing the game if matchmaking was actually going to work. You could actually start playing that game at midnight when the servers went live. But physical copy guys like me, no, I have to go home, I have to take the disc, I have to put it in the hard drive, I have to install the disc. Then I have to download, which took me about 4 hours the following day, this massive update, and just to figure out that I can't even play the multiplayer anyway. I mean, that's the problem that I have, is this whole idea that what we're seeing flooded to the market is just incomplete games. And that's what I was kind of saying at the beginning of this podcast, saying there's a reliance on this sort of thing now, because just from September. We'll leave out the rest of the year before that. I won't even bother talking about the horrendous Battlefield 4 launch from the beginning of the generation. But we had Destiny, which was released, which was fun for a little while. And regardless of how people feel about the game, if you love it, if you hate it, I don't think it matters that much. I think everybody has to kind of agree that shit was left off the table with that game. There's not even a story. You play through the whole campaign, and you don't know anything more at the end of the game than you did at the beginning of the game. You saw lots of cool things.
Framework. It's a $60 framework. It's the building blocks. It's the frame to a house, and they're like, oh, look at this room that we haven't built yet. This is going to be this part of the story. You'll see. It's going to be great. You know, and the framework
That's
is
right. It's
great,
like George
high quality.
With
No, it's
Game
coming.
of Thrones there. Exactly. So Destiny was an empty shell of a game at release, just because I think somebody made a decision, hey, you got to get this game out. I don't know if it was Bungie. I don't know if it was Activision pushing their hands. But moving on a little bit, in October, I know Alien Isolation had some frame rate issues with the cinematics, which is the one part of the game that you wouldn't expect to see issues with. And
wait. You just reminded me something. It's the same issue that I have with Dragon Age. I have no idea why the frame rate never drops in game. Even huge fights, I had 0 frame rate drops. However, in the cinematics, which are done in engine, I get massive drops. And I Googled a little bit on NeoGAF and whatnot, and everyone has the same fucking problem. Now, the only way to solve that thing, apparently, is to put on the PC, you go to the ini file or whatever, and you unlock the 60 FPS for the cinematics. Because even on PC, those are limited to 30. I have no fucking idea why. And yeah, it's weird because the game plays flawlessly so far, but the cinematics are stuttering like hell.
That is really interesting. I can't really, you know, it's the thing where the camera for cinematics is like fixed. You would think that because the camera is fixed, it should technically maybe be doing less than what the camera is normally doing when it has to be with you in game. So I can't really understand that either. But you know, going into October, there were issues with Alien with the frame rate, and recently I think there was a game crashing bug with Mission 5 or something like that they tried to patch, and I think it caused more issues, temporarily at least anyway. What else did we have? We had The Evil Within, which reportedly had a lot of just kind of...
Well, The Evil Within, the issue I think with that one was the letterboxing really turned a lot of people off because they were trying to get better resolution and stuff because they were claiming the cinematic effects of letterboxing and shrinking the size. And I've played part of the game, and I'll hand it to them. There are parts where it helps add to the claustrophobic like horror feeling, but you don't need that for the whole game. It really hinders things more than anything, I feel like. But yeah, just weird issues trying to hit certain resolutions, you know.
Yeah, and and even though that they kind of cheated, I guess, if you want to call it that, by sort of going letterbox and having some black bars on the top and bottom of the screen to squeeze the most out of they could out of the presentation, I still think there were a lot of people complaining about like frame rate issues and stuff like that, at least playing on the PS4. I don't know if that's the same for the Xbox One. But there were performance issues there. But once we got into November, Call of Duty came out, and I know some people were having some multiplayer issues with that game, and it took a little bit for it to get fixed. And then, of course, we came across November 11th, which, for all intents and purposes, was likely one of the largest game release dates of the year. Assassin's Creed Unity and Halo Master Chief Collection. Both of those games have huge issues. And then we go on the next week, November 18th, Grand Theft Auto 5 is released, and there was a patch that was a day one update that caused some issues, I think probably just with Grand Theft Auto Online. But still, they went through this sort of thing a year ago, and here we are again. And also Little Big Planet 3 had some frame rate performance issues. And some people were reporting issues with Far Cry 4, but I don't know off the top of my head what they were.
Yeah, I heard there's some server connection issues with that for whatever it is. I haven't played Far Cry 4, but I've heard there's a lot of server connection things like leaderboards that you can find in-game and things like that where they need a connection. Again, it's in a no, we're not going to be fully connected world we're in. You kind of need to be connected.
And I skipped over a really big October release that was probably one of the biggest fails of the year, Drive Club on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah,
yeah, I just realized that. And speaking of that, earlier today I saw on Twitter that the United States CEO for Sony Entertainment, Sean Layden, he pretty much said that the Drive Club launch and the issues that people have faced since that game had launched were hiccups. It seems like a massive understatement. I mean, I know PR statements have to be PR statements, but holy shit.
Right? Yeah, the issues is, I guess a little soft would be the best way to put that, lightly.
The worst part of all of this is the amount of people that if you just so much as think about complaining about this shit on a forum, there's gonna be hundreds of people telling you chill out, it's just the first day of release or whatever. It's like everyone's so apologetic now. Like there's a lot of people, more and more people every day that are like, hey, it's day one, what do you expect? Of course they're going to have problems. Of course there's going to be a patch. It's okay. No, it's not okay. I mean,
well, I think that's a reaction. I think you're right. There's more and more of that popping up. And I think that's a reaction to, for a while, there was just, there's a difference between criticism, even if it's not fully constructive and nice criticism, just at least criticism and just the bile people would spew at stuff. And there's been a big call to, we need to clean up the game community, and I think a lot of people are taking that as let's just wait it out and be patient and try to do that, instead of figuring out that you can be critical without being a dickbag.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of that sort of thing going on within the video game community anyway, just because, of course, we've had Gamergate, which I don't want to get into because that's a movement that, while there are some okay ideas behind it, it has no focus. It doesn't have any really clear goals, and they're just saying respect for women and stuff like this, which is great. But the thing is that when you have those negative voices in the gaming community, it's not really different from any other community that's out there on the internet. The people who are the vocal minority, who are the angry outliers, are the ones who are speaking up more and more. I mean, really, it just comes down to the fact that there's shitty people in the world. You're not going to have any community anywhere that's 100% pure and full of wonderful, rainbow happy people.
It's also one of those issues in which it's impossible to talk about it, because either you say middle ground stuff and try to be reasonable and nobody listens to you, or if you just criticize one part or the other one, then you're the enemy of this and that, and it's impossible. We had a guy do a special last month on the magazine. He was fucking sweating bullets because it was a special about Gamergate, and he was constantly deleting stuff and rewriting it and whatnot, because it's really impossible to talk about it.
Yeah, it really is, and it's something that I kind of wanted to write about myself for Byte-Size Impressions, but it's just you can't really talk about it. I mean, there's a little bit of common sense that has to go along with, gamers hate women, Gamergate. Ooh, this whole thing started because some ex-boyfriend got pissed off at some, girl who makes indie games in the industry and decided to call her out for it and drag her under the bus with a bunch of other evidence that he had, and whether that's true or not, that's how this whole thing really started. And then it kind of exploded into there not being any transparency within the video game media, which is a good, solid point, but it's really gotten way out of hand past that point. I mean, we're talking about rape threats, death threats, and all this other nonsense. But I'm getting a little off the beaten path here. The point here of this idea that there's going to be people that are just kind of crappy in general in the video game community, they're always going to be out there. There's not always going to be a 100% fantastic community out there that you're going to find that's everybody is just really wonderful to chat with. There's always going to be some people that are negative, that are kind of talking out of their butts. They don't really know what they're saying. And I'm not pretending like I'm one of those people either, but I try to at least stay informed, and I think what Gabe was saying is very true. We have to speak up more and let the industry know that what they're doing is not okay. We already know that we have a bit more power than we'd like to think we do because we're the consumers, and of course whenever we think about big businesses, the first thing that everybody usually says in a conversation about that is like, oh yeah, you're getting bent over and taking it up the rear, but Microsoft, Xbox One, DRM, how fast did they have to change that around? And it did. And I think the Xbox One today is a strong console, and in many respects I think it is a bit better than my PS4 as far as just usability is concerned, even though the PS4 is my primary multi-platform gaming machine for obvious reasons. But the strange thing about it is that's why I'm saying remember the 11th of November with the recent piece discussing all these messed up games that have been coming out. It's because that's the day that I really started to notice a lot of people on the internet stop saying, look, this sort of thing happens on day one. The multiplayer isn't going to be perfect. It's going to be laggy. You might not be able to connect. Oh, don't worry. They'll fix those frame rate issues with a patch in a couple of days. This is just the way things are. And I don't agree with this is just the way things are. It doesn't have to be that way. The only reason why it's that way is because consumers have allowed it.
Well, I mean, Microsoft kind of have banked their entire new business model with the Xbox One on that big 180. Like in the last year since it's come out, they had that big announcement where they made 150 or whatever improvements, and they had this big feedback website. They're doing monthly updates. They've made the model to sell their console. You thought we weren't listening to you, now we're going to, and that echoes kind of what you're saying, where there's been this shift where consumer influence is a thing. We do have power to change things and help things. We just need to figure out how to focus it and use that and get some of this bullshit like the 11th of November out. It's just unacceptable.
Right, but it's an important kind of day to have something like that happen, though, for two of the most widely anticipated games of the year, is to have them just be technical failures in their own respects, because no longer have I been seeing a lot of people just saying they're just video games. Find something better to worry about. A lot of people are concerned. A lot of people are upset. And I'm not happy to see people upset, but I'm happy to see that they are upset because of the way things have been going. And as far as using our voice to speak out, I had a conversation with Gabe recently, and he and I were on we're kind of on the same page. You know, we don't want to send the wrong message to these companies like Ubisoft. And he called me out earlier as soon as he got on there. He's like, I think you're kind of an idiot for buying that game to begin with. And he's of the school that, like, you know, if it smells like shit, it's probably going to be shit, so I'm not even going to touch it. Me, I'm like, I still want to enjoy the games that I know I'm going to enjoy. So maybe I won't support microtransactions or DLC, but I still want to pick up these games. Gabe, is there anything that I'm missing, I guess, from the overview of the conversation that we had the other day? Anything that you want to interject here to kind of give your side of what you mean?
Oh, the only way that I think it's possible to have a change is for, like, if you're gonna buy a game with micros in it, doesn't really matter if you buy into the micros themselves. You're already sending the message that it's okay. That's my opinion, of course. I think the only way it's not buying the game and making it clear for the developers that you did not buy the game because there were microtransactions. That's the only way to get rid of them. Because if you buy the game and not buy into micros, I mean, you're still a potential customer and you still bought the game. So why the fuck should they take them away?
Here, I think, is the key, though. Do you think enough people care enough to boycott a product because of microtransactions for these companies to really have to worry about it?
I get completely what you're saying. What I mean is that it would take like 2 or 3 major releases, and that's it. Like, if gamers could just fucking hold on to their wallet for 2 or 3 games, that would be it. So it would be kind of very fucking easy for that.
Well, the thing that I'd like to interject with that note is that, as I've said in the conversation we had the other day, is that is something that would work, and it is something that is it's a great idea, and of course there is the factor of, will it work? And if it does work, let's just say you were able to get most every gamer across the world to just say, okay, I'm not going to buy this one release to send a message because we know it's not right. What happens then is so many of these...
Wait. It's not to send a message. It's not buying it and sending a message. Like, it has to be super fucking crystal clear that people are not buying it because there are micros.
Right. And I get that. The thing is that so many of these games, and I know this isn't really true for Electronic Arts or Ubisoft, but let's talk about Assassin's Creed. You have a lot of people who were making that game, and you know, based on how well the game performs, there are studios out there that make or break them based on the sales of one game. I mean, Drive Club, for example. A lot of people were kind of worried what that was going to do to Evolution Studios. Assassin's Creed, obviously, you have 10 different teams working on the game, but you know, there's a possibility if people just don't buy the game, even if it's a really good, fun game, which, despite its issues aside, I do think it's a really fun game. I do enjoy the game. It has its problems, yes, but as far as an Assassin's Creed game, if you like those games, especially like the first Assassin's Creed, you should like this one. I don't want to make it so that not buying a game and having everybody not buy a game mean that I'm not going to, you know, any longer get a game like that. I think the message is to maybe just not do micros and DLC, and that's where Gabe and I seem to disagree. We want the same thing, but we have about how to go about it.
I honestly think the stronger message would be for a bunch of people to buy the game and no one to buy the DLC. I think I think when you're just looking at the numbers, which I tend to think that's what they do, I think that would be a stronger sign of, well, they tend to like the game, but no one cares about this stuff. Instead of, oh, no one bought the game, it must have been something wrong with the game, you know? And I don't want to see...
Micros take like a team of 10 people.
Fair.
I mean, it's not going to cost them any money, realistically.
And that's why they do it, because it's really cheap and gets a huge kickback because people buy them.
But it does cost them money to have somebody develop an application for mobile usage, which ties into the game and into the microtransaction system. So, I mean, it's not just a matter of like Call of Duty, for example, where you go in to customize your soldier and it's like, oh, look, this gun looks really cool. I like the camo on it, but oh shit, I have to spend $199 to get the skin for it, and then it's done. They actually made this really integrated, triangle of, game and app and then the microtransactions, and it's just, it's never ending. So they had to integrate all that stuff, and that did take, I think, probably. I mean, I don't know anything about it, obviously, but I think it took a considerable more effort than saying let's just throw up a web store.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, one thing I want to point to that I think is at least a good sign in this discussion is Turn 10, the makers of Forza. Forza 5 was awful. It, like, every screen you saw, press Y to buy boosts, press this to buy this, press that to buy that, and Horizon 2, A-okay, everything's good on it. Because, like, they got such horrible feedback from that it seems like they decided against it. I guess we'll see when Forza 6 comes out if they want to keep the boosts and stuff like that, but it's always refreshing to see something bad show up, there to be a backlash, and it not show up in their next game. So maybe there is hope. Maybe not with Ubisoft.
Right. I don't know, but the thing is that there, as you just pointed out, there are people out there who are getting the message, and I didn't play Forza 5, but I did play Forza Horizon 2, and I bought that game directly as a result of Evolution Studios' fuck up with Drive Club. I was really excited to get Drive Club because just, kind of looking at the screenshots between the two games and seeing the videos, I was like, wow, this Drive Club looks like it's a real looker and a seller for PlayStation 4. And then it came out, and because I didn't buy it right away before I heard anything about the game, I heard it was a disaster, and it chased me over to Forza Horizon 2, which I have been enjoying. And although there are DLC content packs so you can get additional cars, there's like 250 cars in the game, and I'm not barraged with options on my screen all the time to buy additional ones. It's something that feels like it's purely optional. And that's one of the saving graces still with Unity. I was telling Gabe in a conversation before the game came out, or the day that it did come out, I said, I'm still picking up this game because I don't have any reason to think that Unity is going to be something that I'm going to look at the micros and say, shit, they really, really, really want me to buy these micros in order to enjoy the game. I haven't really felt that at all. Do you have to do a little bit of grinding? Do you have to put in some legwork? Yes, but that seems to be the way things are, so that the game isn't severely unbalanced so early on. So it's worked for me. But Gabe also presented me with a screenshot the other day, which I can't find at the moment, but it was from Pirate Bay, of all places. Gabe, do you want to talk about this a little bit, what you found?
What game was it? I forgot. I totally forgot what game it was.
I know, you want to give him props, don't you?
No, it's This War of Mine. It's an indie game, and I'm always curious when a new game comes out. I go on the Bay and I want to see the comments of people that do not pay for games, what they say about games, because they're fucking sincere as hell,
that they are.
And I was really interested in this game, and but I didn't have time to play it, so I was just like, I want to check out the comments, and I went there, and there was a comment from the developer on the Bay, and he was like, "Hey guys, we know times are rough for everyone. Not everyone's got money, whatever. So here are 10 keys for 10 Steam keys for the game. Go ahead and download it legit if you want with these keys and whatnot." And people responded amazingly, and people were actually going and buying the fucking game. So it's like I kind of am an advocate of piracy because I think there's an ethical side to it. Like, in my opinion, if someone is going to pirate games, doesn't matter how cheap they are, is going to pirate them, and if he cannot pirate them, is not sorry, is not going to become magically a customer. Like, I don't consider a pirated game a lost sale. That's what I mean. It's not that automatic.
What about the
Right.
large group of people who say they use piracy as a method of demoing a game? And
Well,
so
I
games
do
can
that
buy it?
actually. I do that. I admit that I do that.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
So
you
is
know
that not
how much
contradictory though? What you just said? You said that people who pirate aren't lost customers, but
No, I
you
said those that are just pirating the game because they can. Like, I
okay,
know people that just they don't give a fuck about the industry. They don't give a fuck about. They don't even give a fuck about the games. Just the fact that they can have them for free, they get them. If
right.
they couldn't, they wouldn't get them. So I do that actually. And if you knew in this 30 years of gaming how much fucking money I put into this industry, it's crazy. Like I should be allowed to pirate games for the rest of my life. But yeah, I think it's there is actually a strong ethical side to piracy.
I just found that comment, by the way, from the game you were talking about, and I'm gonna just read it because it's not too long, and the fucking class here is just amazing. So, she says, "Hey guys, it's Carol from 11-Bit Studios, the developers of This War of Mine. We are really happy to hear that you like our game, on the Pirate Bay no less. They proved that spending 2 years on it was worth it. I would like to say thank you to everyone who decides to buy the game and support us. Because of that, we'll be able to develop further games and create even better games in the future. If because of some reasons you can't buy the game, it's okay. We know life, and we know that sometimes it's just not possible. Here are some codes for the stream copy of the game, so some of you can take a look at it." I mean, that is like, you don't see that, and this, as Gabe said, the response to this on the Pirate Bay was incredible. You know now that there's some fans out there that are, some people that are fans of this studio just as a result of that. Of course, there also is the aspect that indie studios need that kind of exposure to get their names out there, and AAA studios at this point don't. But still, it shows that if you just show gamers a little bit of respect, and that you're not always trying to constantly squeeze them into the next, big scheme to make more and more money and make us, as what I always say, better customers, people will respond to that positively.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that that's the biggest issue because there's a lot of idealism where we need absolutely none of this bullshit I don't like and all of this that I do like and none of that all of this and from what I see unrealistic expectations. I don't see certain things that people don't like in the gaming industry going away. DLC isn't going away. Some people hate DLC, but it's incredibly popular and successful in the industry. I don't see it going away. And if when these problems come up, people can be honest with one another. When the companies can tell us, look, this is what actually happened. We made a mistake. We screwed up. We're sorry. This is what we'll do to fix it, and this will be done. That's one thing. But when there's just a bunch of PR bullshit, people are smarter than that, and they're going to react a lot angrier. Look at what happened with Warlords of Draenor with Blizzard. The game was a mess with the servers when it came out. There's been all sorts of issues with it. They came out and said, we made a mistake. It should not have been like this. Here is 5 days of free game time to every subscriber that was having issues. Everyone gets it, and we'll try not to let this happen again. They were honest, and people reacted very, very positively to it. And then you had Ubisoft, where they said, what was their excuse? Like, it was something ludicrous.
Well, you're talking about Assassin's Creed Unity again?
Yeah.
That is an interesting story, and I mean, back in the summer, it started out as we're aiming for 1080p 60 frames per second. And then some representative after the fact, closer to release, maybe sometime in like October, pretty much said, no, we have parity at 930, and we
To
think
avoid
it.
debates, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe one of the other things was that it made it look more cinematic. That whole thing. I have the quote. If you want to talk about that for a second, I can actually find them. Oh, here it is. Actually, yeah, Gabe just said it. It was the senior producer Vincent Pondbriand, as reported by VideoGamer.com. He said, "We decided to lock them," he means the specs at 930, "at the same specs to avoid all the debates and stuff." And then as far as why, he said, "Technically, the game is CPU bound. The GPUs are really powerful. Obviously, the graphics look pretty good, but it's the CPU that has to process the AI. The number of NPCs we have on screen, all these systems running parallel. We were quickly bottlenecked by that, and it was a bit frustrating because we thought that this was going to be a tenfold improvement over everything AI-wise, and we realized it was going to be pretty hard. It's not the number of polygons that affect the frame rate. We could be running at 100 frames per second if it was just graphics, but because of AI, we're still limited to 30 frames per second. And anybody who's actually played Unity knows that, yeah, there's a lot of people on the screen at once, but the AI isn't doing anything meaningful. They're pretty much just there as like lawn ornaments."
Yeah, to me, AI is like, I'm gonna chase this person, and I get to see that person going to bed and waking up in the morning and going to fucking work and have a routine of his own, and I want to see every single person on the city having his own life, and that's AI to me. It's not, hey, if I push them away, they're gonna fall on the ground. Ooh, huge AI.
I mean, I guess I can understand, not having every character that you see in the game behave that way, especially if they want to produce so many people in Paris at once. But I would at least expect, based on that kind of a statement, that the enemies in the game would be a lot smarter. And that was something that I believe they hyped up a little bit before the actual release of the game. And I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing the same sort of thing that you would see in any other Assassin's Creed, which is I'm going to hide, and I'm going to use my eagle vision so I can see everything around me through walls and everything, so I can pinpoint where enemies are. And then if I watch this enemy, he's just going to go from point A to point B, maybe to point C, and then he's just going to keep retracing that route over and over and over and over again. And as long as I'm patient, it makes it easy. The only thing that's really a bit more difficult in the game is just that enemies will surround you more. They'll run and they'll ring a bell, in order to call reinforcements, but that's about it. Not that that's even really anything new to the franchise.
I think they're probably even like looking at things like this person is carrying a flower pot, and if you run by, they will look at you in this certain way, and there's this many just random people doing random stuff, and all of those needed to be coded. And that's great, and it's fine that you're creating this living world, but I mean, look at the bigger picture and see what you're, at what expense.
Pretty much, and we have been the ones that have been paying for that expense. We've been paying with buying the game at full. A lot of people have been buying season passes ahead of time. A lot of people are also buying into the micros, and I think that's really sort of the big thing to take away from all of this, is that we have to let people know. I mean, the three of us, for the most part, are just three regular guys. Gabe has a little bit of a connection, but he's not like he's like a, an industry insider, and we're just three guys here on the internet, and I have my website up. Garrett, you're here writing. Gabe, you're here contributing to the podcast, and I know that not too many views are coming in, and they may never come into the website, but that's not what this is all about. It's here to at least put the information out there, to have these conversations and put those conversations out there, and let people know what's going on and give them a little bit of a different taste as to a side of the industry that maybe they didn't really see or notice all along, because a lot of the people who are out there that are gamers are casual consumers, and casual consumers don't follow this stuff.
No, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say, like, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these big issues in the gaming sphere are very reactionary. Like you were just talking about with piracy and stuff like that, and how you don't consider lost sale. Well, obviously these big companies do, and because the piracy came about, then we had this DRM, the big invasive DRM we had. And people are asking, why is there all these DLC and microtransactions now? Well, the used game market really encouraged things like season passes and DLC. So it's all of the stuff that comes up is because of something else, and it's really like you were saying, a lot of people don't. A, they're just casual consumers and they don't care, and B, a lot of people care and they're interested, but they haven't really sat down and looked at how things work. Consumer give and take, industry give and take, communication. It's just a big web, and it's all connected, and it's so.
You're defending a little bit the companies here, which is fine, because it's totally fine. But I'm going to ask you this: why have I to be the only one? Like, why do I have to be the only fair one? Because I'll make you an example. There's no way in fucking hell that I'm gonna pay to play online games. Okay, like it's never gonna happen. Never paid a single dime to Gold. Never paid a single dime to PS Plus, and I'm not going to.
That's not true. You said you might have to. Ooh.
Oh, if they give me Phantom Pain to review, I might have to. But anyway.
By the way, I never mentioned where you work or who you're writing for. Is that something you want to mention?
I don't know. We'll discuss this at the end of the podcast, because it depends on the amount of shit that I'm going to throw at Sony. But anyway, my point is, why do I have to, let's say me and you, Garrett, we both buy Dragon Age, okay? It's $60. Actually, it's way more over here, but for the sake of the argument, let's say it's $60. Why do I have to pay the same amount that you pay, and at the same time I'm not interested in the least into the online portion? Why does my product has to cost the same as yours? Why can't I have a version without the multiplayer?
When has that ever been different? If I wanted to play the single player versus the arcade mode of Street Fighter 2 in the 90s, and I didn't care about head-to-head, I didn't care about a second controller port, why should I have to pay for that? It hasn't changed. That's always been there.
Yeah, well, you didn't have to pay a subscription to play with your buddies.
Fine. But I mean, I think we're at a time where it's happened with Uncharted did it, where you could just either pull the multiplayer, or you could just pull the campaign, or you could download the whole game. I think we're at a time where it's the industry is going so digital that should start coming out. We should be seeing things like that more.
EA tried it with what was it? Fight Night Champion, the 5th one. I have no idea how it went, but I know you could buy the single player or the multiplayer.
Yeah, I think that would be a great direction for a lot of these companies to go, and then you would see things like you would probably see Call of Duty focusing a lot more on just having multiplayer games, because I don't think too many people would be buying just the single player, and maybe you would see a standalone Titanfall single player come out, and they wouldn't charge $60 for the just multiplayer version. But no, I kind of agree with what you're saying, but I think there's directions they can go with the technology we have.
Yeah, I definitely. It's an issue that I'm torn on for sure, because this has been coming for a really super long time. Like way back in the day, the original Xbox, okay, there was some online stuff there, and I believe there was an an Xbox membership introduced at that point as well. But when the Xbox 360 came out, because apparently that was doing okay for them, holy shit, the whole system was designed around the marketplace, having Xbox Live points instead of actual real-world currency. And, Sony said, oh my God, how did we not freaking think of this ourselves? Well, we can't just go out there and do the same exact thing as they are and make people, we'll be the good guys, which is ironically what they've done with this generation as well, making themselves look like the good guys, which I don't necessarily agree with. But anyway, they said we have to do something different. So instead of saying we're going to force you to pay for multiplayer, we're going to give you PS Plus, and we can give you all sorts of additional features for your consoles, like being able to upload your saves so you have them in cloud storage in case anything ever happens to your hard drive. You have to pay extra for that shit for some reason, and I don't understand why. But whatever. They offered some services, and eventually, quote unquote, free games. And, a lot of people loved it. And then all of a sudden, you saw Next Gen coming around, and because going on, I don't think anybody really anticipated Sony was going to say, oh, yeah, now multiplayer's behind the PS Plus paywall for the PS4. Everybody was so ready to eat Sony shit after what Microsoft did that nobody even really kind of complained about it. Like, there was a story here and there, but like nothing was overly negative about it. And not that it's really terrible, but the fact that they put money in front of multiplayer for PS Plus, the service hasn't gotten any better. Before you didn't really complain because it's like, there's going to be hiccups. It's free, and now not so much, and that's a big problem. This whole discussion that we've been having tonight has been focused on publishers and or developers, but we haven't really talked about the fact that it's not just the games that are being released unfinished. It's the fact that even the hardware is. Both of those consoles, and I don't know if both of you guys agree with this or not. Both consoles were released in a play-only state. For the most part, they had some features, but both consoles were pretty much rushed out the door, I feel, in order to make sure that nobody had a year start over one another.
See, to me, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Meaning that I think consoles nowadays are bloated to hell. Like there's an overload of shit that I'm never gonna use. I want a console that I can just push the power button and play. That's my dream for next gen.
And as Don Matrick would tell you, there is a solution for that. It's called the Xbox 360.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna touch a little bit on the paying for the online issue because I got nailed to the fucking cross like 2 or 3 months ago, Mike, you know it, on a forum for saying, guys, you're not paying for the fucking servers. Your money's not going there. And apparently there was this fucking self-described expert in that forum that told me, you know nothing about networks and blah, 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 blah. I happen to know where the money goes. And if you pay and the money's not going there, but it's going to fund other services, of course it's not going to get any better.
Yep. And that's another thing with everything that's been going on with Drive Club and its release, because Sony was, it was, they had their hands involved in that whole thing, I think, and people are really upset at Sony, and this, as far as PS Plus not being worth the money that people are spending on, people really started opening their eyes once the servers were being DDoS attacked, and they couldn't get in for a while, and the service has been spotty ever since. There's been plenty of times where things are really slow or unresponsive, or you're just not able to sign in because the network is down. And Xbox Live has had some issues too, but they are far better equipped to handle this sort of thing than Sony, where they sort of have this one bottleneck for logins, where Microsoft is sort of scattered all over the map.
Yeah, I have no idea how Microsoft deals with their stuff.
Better than Sony.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't even know. So it's a really sore spot for me because as everything else in the industry, getting back to what I was saying about PS Plus and everything, and why it's sort of a tricky subject for me, it's because we're conditioned to accept it. It started out as multiplayer was free, and then it was not, but it was still free on one platform, and now it's not free on either platform. It's still free on Nintendo, but they don't even really have a really great multiplayer infrastructure in place anyway, or the games most of the time to support one. So the big names here are Sony and Microsoft, of course, and I really hate the fact that I'm saying to both of these companies, I'll pay $60 a year to play multiplayer on your platform. I don't really want to do it though, but like multiplayer is something I really don't want to live without, and I don't have the resolve. Hey, no, I can't support that. Gabe, you've got balls of steel, man. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Well, I'm extremely pissed off because, PS Plus, the way it started, it was great. It was a fucking real service. Like, you paid for something that you actually wanted. Okay, you knew exactly what you were going to pay, and you knew exactly for what you were going to pay. Right now, it's like, okay, put yourself in my situation. Now, I haven't played a game, as I mentioned before, in the last 3 weeks. Okay, suppose I was a PS Plus subscriber. If I subscribe, it would be to play the online games, not for the discounts or whatnot, because they don't interest me. Now, I would have paid for a whole month without playing. So that was what pisses me off. And the fact that PS Plus, in the way that it started, was actually gaining traction by the day. Like, the numbers were increasing. People were happy. People were paying for something that they wanted. But no, they had to come and just go, bam.
Well, I mean, we're in. It's not a gaming industry issue. It's a technology. It's a modern technology issue. Subscription-based services are everywhere now. Be it Netflix, Hulu, any just gaming websites. Giant Bomb has a subscription service for their exclusive content. Like, everyone has these exclusive subscription services, and that's not something that the gaming industry is doing to try to screw us over. That's something that the whole world is doing, and that's one thing that I feel like a lot of people miss by trying to. I'm not saying that you're wrong or that your reasons are invalid, but to say that these companies are specifically trying to screw us over and we shouldn't pay for that, that's unfortunately where I see pretty much all services are going to this monthly subscription kind of model. Hell, HP has a service where you can send them money each month and they will send you ink for your printer. That's insane, and it's doing really well.
Oh, there's worse. There's one for razor blades.
Yeah, I bet those things are expensive as hell.
No, I'm not kidding you. There's a service in which you pay, I don't even remember how much, and they send you razors.
That is pretty crazy.
There's one where you can sign up for a clothing website, and I can't remember what it's called. You put in your likes and sizes and everything, and someone will pick out clothes for you and send them to you. And you try them on, decide what you like, pay for those, and send the others back. That is a subscription service you can get monthly.
Here's the thing, though. Let's pretend that I was a guy that actually shaves. I know that I'm gonna need a fucking razor blade every week, every 10 days. I don't even have an idea because I have my mighty beard here. But anyway, I know exactly how many I need, and I can calculate if that's convenient for me. Okay. Now, with a subscription model on the video games, with all the delays, like let's say you pay 1 year and then Drive Club doesn't come out, and that's all you wanted to pay. What happens?
Exactly what the companies putting these subscription models out want.
So that's what gets me.
Yeah, the subscription model thing is it is here for everything. And one thing that I've been looking at myself is that with the way things are going, like for example, that TV that's oh sorry, I'm all mirrored here, so it's hard. The TV back there, it's hooked up to a cable box, of course, and the cable box gives me hundreds of channels, most of which I don't watch or want to watch or will ever watch. But I could go for a more basic package, which maybe only gives me so many channels, but of course it's going to be missing some of the channels that I do like to watch. So I'm pretty much stuck in this thing, but there are options out there. For example, I think if I want to pay HBO starting in 2015 just to be able to have access to their online service to be able to stream content through them instead of going through a cable provider, I can. Showtime, I think, does something like that, or they might be doing it very soon. And I think there's even some other ways around it. FX, for example, FXX, whatever, that channel has an app out now called FX Now, and its biggest draw is the fact that every single episode of The Simpsons ever is on there and available to stream for free. The catch right now, of course, is that you have to have a valid cable subscription that verifies entry to that. But there's nothing to say that FX Now could become its own pay-for app, and that pretty soon we're all going to be turning to the internet and streaming, I think, to be able to pay per channel for exactly what we want. And cable's probably going to end up dying out because of how much they want to nickel and dime everything. So I think there's middle ground between both of what Gabe and Garrett are both saying, what you guys are saying. It's that I do think these companies are, they're trying to make more money because they're businesses, which I can't exactly fault them for, but at the same time, I think most of the time they're overstepping their bounds, and they are kind of trying to screw us at the same time. But I think what we're seeing with video games right now is going to be the same thing that's going to eventually happen to the television industry as long as this keeps progressing the way it is, where you don't have to have the whole package. You can just stream online and pay for this channel, that channel, and that channel and be done with it. Before, I used to open up my wallet. This is a hard drive case, but whatever, it fits the purpose. And I used to say, okay, here's money for a console, and now I'm going to go spend money on games. Now it's not just that. Now there's individual DLC, there's DLC packs, there's season passes, and of course now there's microtransactions. And not only that, but now there's even the multiplayer paywalls for the Xbox One, for the PlayStation 4, so they both need to have their cut. And now there's additional service models that are coming out, like PlayStation PS Now. They have their streaming gaming service, and I think they're probably going to focus more on the future and older platform games like PS1, PS2 for stream, stuff like that, and PS3. And there's also EA Access. Now Electronic Arts, a publisher, wants in on the action. So they're saying, hey, instead of going to GameStop and spending 10, 15, 20 bucks for a used game, why don't you just give us like however much it is a year so you can have access to our platform, and then you could get a bunch of games that we threw in our vault for nothing except for what you pay for the subscription. Yeah, in the future, Ubisoft's going to want to do the same thing. Activision's going to want to do the same thing. And they're going to want their cut. And that is going to lead, I believe, to stuff being thrown behind more and more paywalls. And, boy, I think we're going to be feeling pretty screwed by those companies at that point. And I think with the progression of things, do either of you disagree that that's where things are going to head?
Instead of paying $70 for a cable subscription, you're going to be paying $70 for a much more focused version of what subscriptions you want to pay for. But yeah, we're going to be paying a ton on subscriptions because that's where everyone's going. You'll notice with the HBO Go issue, no one is saying that they don't think they should need to pay for HBO. They're just saying they don't want to pay for all the other crap that comes with cable. And well, not many people. I know Gabe doesn't want to pay a subscription for anything he might not use, but like a lot of people, as long as it is kind of, they see it as worth it to them, even if they only get a little use out of it, they'll pay it. And that's why something like EA Access has had such a positive reaction from people, even though it's from EA, is that, well, yeah, it's EA, and yeah, I don't own these and all that, but it's $5, and it's double-edged sword. On one side, that's awesome. It's $5. You're getting all these games. That's great. On the other, that subscription plus this subscription plus this subscription plus this subscription ends up being substantially more expensive than you meant, because they're just trying to convince you that it's not that much.
Right, and that's the whole point with this thing, and kind of relating it to TV, is that TV, I think the way that it is today with cable and everything like that, it's going to collapse, because once these companies come out and say, you can, if you have enough channels that you like, you could probably spend the same amount of money for, as you said, a more focused package of the stuff that you actually want, or maybe even get out a little less, because shit with cable companies is not cheap nowadays, and they're always upping the prices. But it's not sustainable if that's where the competition is going, where the providers of content are actually saying, we're going to do our own thing. It's going to cut out TV, and it's going to hurt TV. But the video game industry, as I said, that wallet has only got the same amount of money in it each and every time, and it's going to be harder for each company to sustain, I think, and it's going to probably cause a lot more problems in the future. Anyway, I think we discussed about a lot of great things this evening, and this is a conversation that could go on forever and ever and ever, and for all intents and purposes, I think this probably carried on longer than it should for a first podcast. But
I thought we were going to talk about Jurassic Park.
We totally should. I'm fucking stoked for Jurassic World.
I knew that.
I love that
movie. I was excited for a premiere of a trailer. So
I know the fact that the teaser came out today. I saw it, and it was literally 3 quick shots and
it looked
4
awesome
notes on a piano, and it did look awesome, and I'm really excited. I mean, so I don't know. So is there anything that either of you guys really want to kind of add really, really quick before we sign off here in regards to the industry, or any messages that you want to leave with anybody out there? Because I will be taking the YouTube post after the fact and adding it to the website. So
with all the negativity, a lot of the games, that even the ones that we may complain about and stuff, a lot of them still end up being a lot of fun, and I think it's very easy to forget that when you get in the heat of it. Something like the Master Chief Collection that we were talking about, yeah, it is a buggy mess with the matchmaking, but there's still a whole other part of the game that is the single player that is still amazing, and sometimes when you get really pissed off at the industry, it's just try to enjoy the games for what they're for, which is leisure and enjoyment.
And I do agree with that, because as I said earlier, even though Assassin's Creed Unity is getting a lot of shit from people, including myself, I wrote an entire article about this thing. It's a really fun game, and I really enjoy it, and I really like the setting, and I don't mind the story the way that it's playing out. I think the main character is certainly a lot more memorable than the main character from Watch Dogs. I don't really have any actual complaints outside of technical difficulties. So yeah, that is important to remember. All the games that I can run off have had some degree of fun to it. Destiny, although I'll never play that game again. Drive Club, I'm sure, has been fun. I haven't had my hands on that one. Alien, The Evil Within. I don't know. There's so many games. I mean, there were a bunch of games this month that released too that we already mentioned that. Yeah, and I'm sure they're all fun, but Gabe, how about yourself?
Not much to add, actually.
I find that to be shocking. You usually have lots to say.
Man, you know how busy I've been this last month. I mean, it's been killing me with this fucking PlayStation event and whatnot. Are you excited, guys, for that? By the way.
For what?
The PlayStation event.
The PlayStation event, I want to be excited for it, but at the same time, you know how they did the same thing with E3. It's like they're going to hype, and then we're going to get there, and it's going to be like we saw a few new seconds of the order or something, and that was like the biggest announcement for the whole freaking thing. Like, I hope it's a bit more substantial than that. I mean, they're saying they're going to blow our minds.
It's Morpheus.
I hope they do.
It's Morpheus.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and call it. It's Morpheus.
I wanted to ask you guys this because I've been so fucking out of the loop. Are they hyping the thing or not? Because I haven't been following.
They're not doing like a substantial amount of like hype per se, but there is a lot of hype on internet communities that I've noticed, because there have been little statements that have come out of certain individuals' mouths from within Sony or whatever, saying, "Oh yeah, you know, wait for this, you won't believe what you're going to see," or something along those lines. And I think a lot of people are really curious to see if we're going to see what Sony Santa Monica are doing.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll see The Last Guardian there either. Sorry, Gabe.
Nah, I don't think either. Oh, by the way, yeah, there is something that I can add in regards to the industry. As you know, I've made the Sony monograph, which covers actually it covers right after the Second World War, but the part that I'm
Gabe,
that
hold
I've
on, back up a second, Gabe. People have
What?
no idea what you're talking about. You're saying the Sony monograph. I don't think they know what you mean.
So in December, there's going to be the 20th anniversary of the PlayStation brand, and at the magazine, we made a big monograph with the history of PlayStation. Like, I actually started from the Second World War, like how Sony kind of picked up Japan with the electronic industry, and then the Walkman and blah blah blah. But what I wanted to say is that it impressed me how much more fun I had writing about the PS1 and the PS2 era rather than the PS3 and the PS4 one. I actually struggled while writing the last part of that monograph because it was so fucking clean back then. Like, really, it was good games. You go to the store, you buy the game, you give money.
I don't know if it's my connection.
Uh-oh.
All
Can you
right,
hear me?
well, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
But I just want to say I agree with you in that respect, and the reason why I realized that is because when Assassin's Creed was kind of buggy, I wanted to see if they were going to be able to patch that game in a day or two, and also when I found out the Master Chief Collection's matchmaking wasn't working, what was I doing on that Tuesday, November 11th?
You
I
were
was
paying for an online that you weren't using. What kind of question?
I was going to say that I was playing Super Mario 64 instead,
Oh, right.
an old school game, and I posted a video, I think, on the website of me doing that. So those games are still really, really fun to play too, and yeah, there does seem like there's a lot less to worry about when you play one of those games. So anyway, that's enough for this evening from all of us. We've been on for a really super long time, and it's our first time we work out the kinks, and next time we will be a bit more focused, not conversationally, because I want it to be a bit more open and natural than other things that are out there, because again, we're just regular guys sharing our passion for video games in the industry with you and through Byte-Size But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of aiming for 1 hour podcasts in the future, and we'll be a bit more topical. But being that this was the first time and that we were so close to after the release of a lot of these buggy games that came out in October and November, I felt it was really, really, really worth kind of getting our hands in there and talking about that whole aspect of the industry. So, Garrett, thank you for being here. Gabe,
Absolutely.
thank you very much for being here, especially since your time, it is, what, 4 o'clock in the morning? Holy fucking shit.
I promise I'll try to be more awake and less shitty next time.
No, you sounded plenty awake, so don't worry about it, and hopefully you can be here with us next time.
Perfect amount of shitty.
Yeah. So, everybody, we're signing off. Remember to check the website. There's content updated there, whether it's me doing Twitch streams that I've saved to YouTube. I write content. Garrett's going to be adding content to the site in the future. And Gabe is a mystery man. We'll see. as he said, he's a very busy guy, and I won't say where he works. I don't know if he feels comfortable with that, especially after some of the things that he had said.
Yeah,
He might
exactly.
might incriminate himself. So, anyway, have a good night, everybody.